Implementing tip-based book structure. So let's start with tip-based structure. What you see in front of you is a book by Judith Belmont called 150 More Group Therapy Activities and Tips. And I'm going to walk you through the look inside so that you can see how this book is organized. And so here is the title page. Moving on to the table of contents. So of course, your acknowledgments about the author and the introduction, and then we start with your chapters. Now, the way she did it is she has a chapter that is a topic, let's say chapter 1, group beginnings, how to start your groups. And then she says tip 1, tip 2, tip 3. And then she has a second chapter that groups the tips into topics. Chapter 2 is metaphorical and multimodality learning activities, tip 16, 17, 18, etc. So you see how she's organized. However, I am going to recommend that for your tip-based book, you make it even simpler. Instead of having chapter 1, group beginnings, your book will be just tip 1, tip 2, tip 3, tip 4, and your tips are your chapters. It'll make it much easier for you to implement. This book actually uses 2 types of structures. One is topical, and then underneath the topical, it uses tips. So it's sort of a mixed structure book. But for your first book, if you choose a tip-based structure, I would like you to make it a simple tip-based structure. Only tips. Tip 1, tip 2, tip 3, tip 4, and that would be your table of contents. So it would have the title of your book, and then your chapters would be tip 1, tip 2, tip 3, tip 4. That's a super simple, easy way to implement. Now let's look a little deeper, and let's look at a sample chapter so that you can see how easy it is to write a book that's tip-based. Let's look at tip 2, group beginnings, to see how she organized her chapter. Because remember, there's book structure and there's chapter structure. And I know I said right now I'm focusing on the big book structure. I want you to see how they're both interrelated. Let's take a look inside the book to see how easy it is to structure your chapters. So all chapter 1 is tip 1. The tip is using psychoeducation as a cornerstone of your groups. And so all she did is she gave you the theory, and it's really quick. See how quick it is? And then implementation. And in implementation, she gives you a few little quick tips, mini lessons, group activities, handouts, and worksheets, and visualizations, and then she's done. Already moving on to chapter 2, which would be tip 2, group beginnings. Again, her structure is theory and implementation, and she's done with chapter 2. Tip 3, how is your emotional wellness? Again, theory and implementation. So that's how easy it is to organize your tip book. So for a tip-based book, all you're going to do is come up with a certain number of tips. I recommend that you choose either 30 or 52 tips, because with 30 tips, you can implement a tip a day for 30 days. And with 52 tips, you can implement a tip a week for 52 weeks. Either one you choose is okay. It's just a way of structuring your book. That's an example of a tip-based book. Now let's take a look at a Q&A book.